Hi everyone, welcome to video 3 of the Raspberry Pi Rack series. Today I've got something special to show you. As you probably noticed from the Colts 3D emails, I changed a couple of things on the parts that I had already published. So first of all, on the base I added 3 holes on each side for some bolts, and on the mid-rack I added 5 holes on each side for the bolts. So what I found was, even though the dovetail mechanism is great, I wanted mine to be super rigid so that, like, if a dog hit it or something, it wouldn't fall over and break. So I went ahead and added some bolts to that. So for each side panel, you'll have a total of 5 bolts, and those are just the standard 2.5 or the M2.5 by 10 bolts. So really easy to source. I ordered a couple hundred of them, so I should have plenty, but they're easily available. That is going to be a really cool design feature. First of all, I think it looks awesome. I think it just makes it look more industrial. In addition to that, it also provides an immense amount of stability. Like, there's no, when those things are all bolted together, there's no sway, there's no movement. It's awesome. And today I'm going to show you that I have the first tier complete. So today's release is going to be the side panels for the 2U section, and then the back panel for the 2U section. So if you have a base and a mid-rack, you should be able to print the side panels for the 2U section, and you should be ready to go for a small section of the rack. The next release will probably be the 3U section. I'm working on that now to make sure everything's dialed in. I think it works pretty well. The magnets are super strong on the back, so the back panel doesn't flop open or anything like that. The faceplates stick to the front just fine. I think it's going to be a really nice improvement. Certainly a definite iteration over what I've got on my desk right now. So I'm really excited about that. I hope you are as well. In addition to that, obviously you need to take into account the parts list change. So if you want to use the sections that have bolt holes in them, you're going to need extra bolts based on the size of your rack. So each side panel is going to be 5 bolts. So do some addition and figure out what your number is going to be as far as how many bolts to order. So there's that. Let's see, as far as status of the rest of the build, most of the side panels are really close. Most of the back panels are really close. I'm about 75% on the top. So what I found was, when I was redesigning the top to accommodate the dovetail interlocking mechanism, it didn't work out the way I wanted it to. It just didn't look right. So I completely started over on the top. Yeah, so that's quite a bit of work. So I pretty much, had to start over entirely in order to make things work. So I've got pretty much everything except for the lid done, and I need to adjust some magnet placement there, and I think then it's ready to go. So I'm pretty excited about the status of the build. You're going to see some pretty cool stuff today, so stay tuned. Alright, so real quick, I want to talk about a design change to these side panels. Um, you know, I am 100% confident in the mechanism that I have here to hold everything together. I would have no problem running that, and I'm actually going to publish the files for this as it is right now. However, I want to make a slight change for my environment because I'm extra, and it's what I do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to publish some new files in parallel to that take bolts in each of these and bolt to the base and the mid rack. Now, like I said, I'm 100% confident in the design as it is now. I just feel like I've got some extra bolts and I might as well make it work. So what I'm going to do is, going forward, I'm going to maintain this in as much as that's one of the things that I'm going to use in my environment. The version of these that doesn't have fasteners, so as it stands right now, this version, I'm pretty much done making changes to those because I don't think I actually need to make any changes to them anyway as it is. But going forward, if I do make any changes, it's probably going to be only to the ones that have fasteners. And I'm going to make some changes to the mid-rack and the base to accept these. And I'm not going to publish different versions of that, because if you don't want to use fasteners with your rack, those parts are going to work anyway. So it's not a big deal. But I think for me, it's going to look better on my desk, and it's going to look better in the real world to have these things kind of bolted together. It'll reduce any wobble that the rack may have, and I don't think there's going to be any of that anyway. But for me, like I said, I'm extra, and I like to do things overkill. Obviously. So what I'm going to do is make these changes to this, and you're welcome to follow along or skip ahead in this video, but I'm going to do it real quick. Quick grab all of that. Anyway, all right. So dimensionally, this is going to be 5. This is going to be 7.5. So that'll put us directly in the middle. Same for all of these. I'm sure there's probably a way to pattern this, but I only have to do it once, so I don't really care. Then what I'm going to do is just drill some holes for this. Alright, so now that we've made that change for this sketch, what we're going to do is just use the hole tool. Oh, that's a little big. Let's go with just, actually, do counter bore. 60's fine, I don't really care, but we're going to go 3 millimeters. And what we're going to set this up is for 2.5 millimeter bolts at a length of 10 millimeters. So that's for 3. So that's for 5. Okay. And then let's just do all. Okay. Alright, so now this essentially is complete. Now we'll need to make some changes to the mid-rack and the base, and we'll do that here in a sec. But as you can see, we've got what we're looking for. So inspect on this. We got 3 millimeters. Got that. That's 5 millimeters. That's going to take us all the way through. If we do a section analysis on this, you'll see that should be 7 or roundabout. 6.9, which that's fine. These are just slightly thinner than 10, and that's to make everything fit better in the rack when it all bolts together. So I think we're good on this. We'll turn off the analysis. Now, we've got these parts made. Now let's go ahead and do this. We'll go ahead and take let's just pull open the right for you panel, and I'll show you what's going to happen here. So this is pretty cool. So take this, and it should tell me that it's out of date. Never mind, I can modify the 5U panel first. Okay. Alright, now this one is going to tell me that it's been changed, so we're going to update that, and you'll see those holes will pop in. So now we've got that modification made, and so now that I've got that done, we'll save that. So 5U's done, and now we're going to do 4U. Alright, update 4U. As you can see, all the components just derived from that. Alright, right side's done. Let's do the left side. Looks good. All right, that looks good. Okay. All right, so the side panels are complete at this point. Let's go ahead and modify the base and the mid rack to accept the bolts that the side panels are going to have for my rack. Again, these parts are going to be exactly the same whether you use bolts in your side panels or not. But for me, I'm going to use bolts, and so I need to prep these. However, you'll be able to still use these parts, and yeah, they'll have holes there, but it won't matter because you won't see them. So let's jump back to, say, here. So let's jump back to this. And we're going to do a couple of things. So first, we're going to edit this and bump that up to 17 so we got a little bit of space to work with because we're going to extrude 5. So we'll do that. And then now that we've got this, we're going to make 2 sketches. Unfortunately, it does require 2 sketches for this. So let's do this. And we're going to create um, a center diameter circle. We're going to zoom in. We'll just put it right there. And that's going to be 2.2. Now we're going to put our dimensions of that to. It didn't put it in the right spot, did it? All right, let's try that again. So dimension, center point of 5, and center point of 10. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take this thing, and we're just going to do a rectangular pattern on it. And I know it's 160, so we're going to go with that. So 160 will get us 3 of these in exactly the locations that we need. So we'll finish this. We're going to go ahead and do an extrude. Now the reason we need to do 2 sketches on this, because the way that I'm doing it with an extrude, I want to do an offset, and the only way to make that work, from what I can tell, is this way. So uh, let's say we're going to go that way. We're going to cut into this thing, right? Well, we want the distance to be all, but we also want to do an offset, and that's going to be, I guess, what, -2 in this case, right? So -2, and then that means that there should be in here, let's inspect this, a distance of 5. So yeah, we have a distance of 5, and our diameter is 2.2, so that should accept our bolts just fine. So now we need to do this on the other side real quick, and then we should be all set. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, set our dimensions. Let's try that again. Okay, cool. Now let's do a rectangular pattern for these. Out that way at 160. All right, finish sketch. Now what we're going to do is an extrude. Grab that, that, and that. Go out that way all, and we're going to do an offset of, I believe, -2. Oh, okay, cool. So now let's go ahead and check that. And it should be, yeah, 5. All right, so I believe this part is ready to reapply the changes that we rolled back, and we should be all set. Okay, cool. So now we have holes that we can screw into, and those are exactly where they need to be as well. So cool. This part, I believe, is ready to go. So let's go ahead and save that. And then for the mid-rack, we're going to do essentially the same thing. So we're just going to reapply those changes. All right, now that we have the base modified to accept bolts, let's go ahead and do the mid-rack real quick. This shouldn't take too long. Let's see. I think, yeah, this is a good starting point. So let's start with this. So the first thing we're going to do is, much like the base, we're going to create a couple of different sketches. So let's go ahead and create a circle. That's going to be 2.2. Zoom in, set our dimensions here. So it's going to be 5. This will be 10. All right, so now that we've got that set, we're going to go ahead and create a rectangular pattern. All right, so we need this to be 160. And that should get us exactly what we need for this one. Okay, let's go ahead and finish the sketch. And let's make an extrude for these parts. All right, now we want that to go that direction. So it'll be a cut, all, and then I want an offset of, I believe, -2. Yep. Okay, cool. So this should give us, right now, 3, because we need to make a modification to, I believe it was, so that one. No, not that one. This one. Okay, so we're going to change that to 17 real quick. So what that'll do is give us just a little bit thicker walls to work with. Okay, cool. So that's done. And if you look, now we should have an inner length of 5. Okay, cool. So that's enough to accept those bolts. Now let's knock out the other side. Okay, and we're going to do, again, a rectangular pattern. And we'll do 160. That should get us out where we need to be. Okay. Let's go ahead and do an extrude, and we'll do an offset on this one as well. All right, so go back that way. All, offset, -2. And our holes should be created for this. So that should be a finished part. So we'll go ahead and print it and test it, and I think we're all set. Today we're working on the side pieces. So at this point, I think this one's pretty close, but what we're doing right now is checking to see if the magnets fit properly. So I got just a little slice of the right side panel here that hopefully, with any luck, will fit perfectly as soon as it comes off this printer. Meanwhile, on the other printer, I'm printing a section of the back panel. So this will be to test for the magnet placement and fitment in the back section that attaches to the other printer's piece that's printing right now. So if this all goes well, I'll be able to have the back piece and the side piece pretty much ready to go. Let's talk about magnet placement with the 2U sections real quick. So the magnets that I use to hold the back pieces together, those are 20 by 6 by 2 rectangular magnets. I used a caliper and measured those, and they are plus or minus about 0.05 millimeters or 50 microns. Those are pretty much off-the-shelf stuff that you can buy. I don't think you can get them on Amazon, but you can get them from like U Magnets or something like that. But my tolerances for that inside the model are for these magnets with those tolerances. So make note of that when you buy some, because that's what you're looking for. Now, what I've done here is I've sliced up a couple of different models to test with. And so what you'll see is I have a test 1, a test 2, and then this is a back panel test. These were printed on the Prusa Mini. This was printed on the Mark III's. Now, that has nothing to do with the accuracy of the Mark III's, and it has everything to do with the way the model is placed on the print bed. So I'll walk you through that real quick. So first, let's talk about placement of these. So on the design, this fits roughly about right like that, okay? Now, this piece fits up against it like that. So you'll see you have your two magnets here, and you have your two magnets here. So why is that important? Well, if you look, the distance that I have set from either side here on this particular print is 2.1 millimeters. The Prusa Mini was able to get that within 2.15 to 2.25 millimeters. With the second print, I bumped that down to 2. That got me to 2 millimeters to 2.08 millimeters. So pretty accurate for what it is. However, these I want to be essentially press fit. So I want them to fit in those slots and stay there. So I have another test print that's printing that I think is going to be successful, and that will print at 1.9. So the difference between the Mini and the Mark III's when it comes to things like this is pretty minimal. There's not a whole lot of retractions, so the Bowden system of the Mini doesn't come into play here. But I think it's going to be exactly what we're looking for even on the Mark III's. Now, this part prints like this, and so you have an overhang here, and that overhang adds about 25 to 30 microns, or sorry, 0.25 or 0.3 millimeters of added material on top of this. So it would be, what, 250 to 300 microns, my bad. Anyway, so point being, this is a lot tighter than what those are because of the way that it prints. So when I tested this for fit and finish, the magnet fit in there exactly like I wanted it to. And when I measured this, it was 1.9 to 1.95. Now, what I set in the design was 2.25. So, with that being said, now that I know that that is what I'm looking for to get this to press fit and stay there, I've made another one of these that's going to be 1.9. So, that should fit for these. I'll know here in a few minutes when that one comes off, and then I can start building the side panels. Alright, after printing the rest of the tests for this, I found that 1.9 was exactly what we were looking for. That turned out to be 1.9 to 2 millimeters, and that's exactly right for this. So that magnet that fits in there will stay nice and sturdy and won't go anywhere. In the meantime, I also printed something that I thought was pretty cool. So this is essentially part of one of these on the front. So it would sit like this. So this is like the right side, if you will, right? So it would sit like this. Now, this is one of the face plates, just kind of chopped up. I threw some magnets in there. I had some laying around, and I was like, I might as well. So what that'll actually do is help keep the face plates nice and sturdy and pressed in. What I found is that, if something moves the rack or something like that, sometimes the blades kind of slide out just a little bit. That will prevent that. So I did some measurements, and it looks like it's about 15 to 20 millimeters from the fan and any other electronic components. And those aren't very strong magnets, so I don't think it's going to be a particularly detrimental thing to have in the rack that close to electronics. I think it'll be fine. But I'll keep an eye on that, and if I, destroy any gear, I'll just replace it, I guess. But I don't think it's going to be an issue, because these are just little tiny magnets. I mean, as you saw, it just fell off there. So what this is, these are 6 millimeter by 2 millimeter round disc magnets. I picked up 300 of those on Amazon for like $12. The problem with these things is that whenever they manufactured them, they weren't exactly as close to tolerance as they should have been. And so what they actually ended up being was 6 millimeters by 1.7 millimeters. So that gap right there, I've set that for 2, which fits perfectly since this prints like that. This piece prints on its back like that, and so that is set for 1.6. That makes it nice and sturdy. So those magnets aren't going anywhere, and they seem to work pretty well. So I'll drop a link in the description of this video so that you can find the ones that I bought. If you feel like you want to switch those out to do something else, by all means go for it. You probably will have to adjust the size, the dimensions of those holes, but do your thing.
Alright, after some test prints, I discovered that I think this magnet placement isn't actually going to be necessary. So what I've went ahead and done is updated the 5U panel, and we're going to go back and revise the changes that I made for this, and we're going to make it essentially the same press fit type of mechanism that the 2U panel is. So let's roll back to the beginning and we'll walk through it. Alright, so now we've got our part. Okay, we have some magnets. We're going to remove those because we don't need them just yet. Well, we're going to remove these at the very least. Alright, so our magnets are going to go back to that. Let's go ahead and open this up. Magnets are placed there. We do need to set magnets in the front anyway, so that's good. Let's see. So we have a sketch. That's going to be for that. We're actually going to remove that here in a sec. We're going to remove this as well. So these are added features that we added specifically for this part of the 4U panel. And these aren't going to be necessary with the new mechanism. So let's see what that was. Okay, that is good. That's for that piece. All right. So we've got that. Of course, that's obviously going to be problematic, but since I've already updated the 5U panel, let's go ahead and pull this in. All right, so now you can see that and that look right. Looks like I have a chamfer that's not working. Not sure which one that is, but I think I know what it is. Okay, so that's for that. All right, and then we don't need that. What we're gonna do is set this fillet right here. That's what that one's for. Not sure why it went back to chamfer, but it was actually a fillet. All right, let's set it for that. Now that we have that in place, it looks like everything is to spec. So this is going to be 2. This is going to be 1. This will be 1.9. This will be 21. Okay. Down here, this will be 1. This will be 1.9. This will be 1.9. And this should be 21. Okay, cool. So those are exactly as they should be. Let's go ahead and do an analysis on this. Now I can place those magnets. So let's grab magnet 1. What's magnet 1? That one. Okay. Let's grab magnet 1. We're going to put this one on the top. Looks good to me. Next magnet. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, cool. So we're done with that particular analysis. Let's add the magnets to the front. So to do that, we're going to need a new analysis, it looks like. So we'll go here. Cut that in. Select from here as we should. And what we're going to do is add some magnets. So let's go back to my reference objects and pull those in. All right, cool. We're going to take that, move him 90 degrees, straight up. Cool. All right, now we'll take this and we'll duplicate it. Do that again. I'm sure there's a way to do this more easily than what I'm doing it manually right now, but this works, and I haven't had much coffee today, so we're going to go with it anyway. All right. almost got those done. This part will be complete. What I found with the old mechanism was that depending on how it printed, it could potentially be, never mind, we don't need a fifth one. All right, again, lack of coffee today. All right, anyway, so what I found with the other one is that what it would potentially be doing is coming in from the top, it might be just slightly too tight there, and then trying to get into that section, it just it didn't work. So I think this is a better design for this anyway. It's certainly more simple. It definitely is going to make it significantly easier to adjust those sizes if necessary because you can just go to the root object and change it there instead of having to go to each one of these designs and modify it. So I think this is probably going to be the win. Anyway, yeah, that looks a lot better, and I think it's going to be certainly an improvement in the design. So, all right. All right, now that I've decided that I'm going to simplify the right side panels and their magnet placement, I went ahead and did the same thing for the back panels. So let's open up the 5U panel and you can see what I'm dealing with. So what I did was, and of course I should have recorded it, but I didn't. Anyway, I thickened this up 2 millimeters that way with that sketch. So that gave me a little bit of wiggle room here, and then I adjusted these out about, I don't know, another 2 millimeters based on where the new placement on the back pieces are, or sorry, on the right side pieces are, and then I did the same down here. What that allowed me to do was kind of eliminate the whole section here that you would stick the magnet in and then slide the magnet down. I don't think it's needed. So what I did instead was I just kind of cut that out instead and just slid it right in that way. What that allows me to do is a couple of things. So first, it reduces complexity of the design, right? But then it also makes it significantly easier to derive from. So when you look at the 2U panel, uh, I'm not sure if I'm going to throw up a video of that or not, but what I ended up having to do was cut out a section here, and then like the magnet was kind of half hanging out of this anyway, based on how you'd have to slide it in, so you didn't get into the magnet that's up here. Like so that I didn't get into that. Essentially, I had to move that cut down, and then the magnet would kind of still stick up a little bit. So I wasn't particularly happy with that anyway. So we're going to go with this instead, and I think it's going to make things a lot simpler to deal with. Um, in order to actually make this work, what I ended up doing was let's just step back to this real quick. So from here, I ended up, as you can see, from the slice where oh, that's not what I'm looking for. So from the slice that I made here to kind of join those, it cut off part of the section the magnet would sit in. So what I ended up doing was just grabbing hold of that and extruding it up 9 millimeters. So now it should be exactly what we need. So I think that's going to make things a lot simpler to print for one thing, and I think it's going to make it a lot easier to assemble. So that looks good to me. All right, so as much as I hate the idea of this, I'm going to have to make a change to my print process to make this panel work. So after adding these bolt holes right here, you see how there's that overhang right there in each one of these? Yeah, so that's going to be problematic because that's going to require supports. So originally I tried to keep my supports to a absolute bare minimum with this print, but with this, I think it's just going to be what it's going to be. So I'm going to go ahead and paint on some supports for this, and hopefully this will print the way that I expect that it will. This is, like I said, these holes are really the only thing that needs some additional support. And it hurts me inside to even think about having to do that, but it is what it is, and so I'll get past it. Okay, so yeah, there we go. Yeah, so the inside Fuchsia slicer, if you're not aware, there's a way to just paint on supports, and seeing as how there's nothing else that really needs it on the build plate, we're just gonna go with that. So let's lay it flat, and then I'm gonna set that to support enforcers, And then we'll make sure it's centered up. Check our print settings. That's 5 and 5. See, apportionment at 15. Let's take a look at it when it's sliced now. So, looks like just those have supports now. So yeah, not a whole lot of extra support, but it's going to be required in order to make those bolt holes look, right. Yeah, I guess you could probably try to get it to print, but I'm guessing there'd be some stringing underneath of there. So not really interested in doing that. Let's just go ahead and print some supports and I can pop them out. So not that big of a deal, but it's unfortunate. Anyway, let's go ahead and send that out to the printer so I can get a test off of this. I got to do one of these and one of the left side. Then I can start testing to make sure that the trays are going to fit. All right, so as you saw from the right side panel, these bolt holes here are going to require some supports. On the left side panel, there's a little bit more that we need to support as well, so let's paint these things on real quick. So I'll be a little bit sloppy with those because it's not going to matter. That's going to lay flat on the build plate anyway. All right, let's get that done. All right, now for these, you're going to want to just paint a little bit on the bottom of that, and that will support it off the build plate. Just like that. Then we're going to lay it face down. We'll go ahead and center it. Make sure our print settings are set for 5 and 5 on top and bottom. Infill of 15. For supports, we're going to set this to support enforcers only, and then apportionment. And so when we slice that, you'll see we have our supports there, and we should be all set. So for these, you just kind of pop them off, stick a back panel on, move it around a couple of times, and it'll just clean itself up. So those are super simple. With these, just stick a small screwdriver or something in there and pop them out. You should be all set. Real easy to clean up supports on these parts. All right, with the back panels, they don't need any supports. So these things are pretty much the out-of-box defaults aside from the top and bottom shell setting. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to take this and I'm just going to lay it on its back, and it will print just like that. Let's go ahead and make sure that we've got our horizontal shells at 5 and 5. We don't need any supports. Infill 15, apportionment, slice. It's ready to go. So 2.5 hours to print that part, and it doesn't need anything else. So that overhang will be fine. Same for that. So really clean part. All right, as you can see, this is a completed bottom section. So this is the 2U section that will be the base of my rack. I've got all the magnets and everything put in here. It's quite strong, so this just pops on and off like so. And it's quite stout wise, so that's what you want. Now, I've also got the magnets in the front, so these will go in the blades that are going to go in here. One thing to pay attention to, each of these, they need to be in the right polarity, right? So both sides are exactly the same polarity, and both U's are the same polarity. You really want to pay attention to that. That way, if you take out a blade, you can put it in another spot. So the entire way up the rack will be the exact same polarity of these magnets. Same for the back. One thing I haven't done yet is I haven't put the bolts in this. So as you can see, it's pretty stout as it is. Like it's not going anywhere, right? I mean, it's pretty heavy duty, but I want it to be particularly robust. So I've got these. So I ordered these from McMaster-Carr. So just M2.5 by 10s. I'm gonna put these in real quick, and I think you'll see that it's a lot more robust after doing that. Alright, so as you can see, it's all bolted in now. It's quite robust. It's not going anywhere. That thing's pretty heavy duty. So I'm impressed with that. I mean, there's like zero wiggle. It's stout. Also,
These are some test prints for trays. I think I finally have the right fitment. Check that out. Smooth, slides right in there. So yeah, we're making some good progress on this.